So, welcome back to another great show with Sean Unboxing. Today, we're going to be talking about Canelo Alvarez's big event with Edgar Berlanga. Iceman is in the house. Iceman, can you hear me? Let me know in the comment section below. So, while we're doing this, let me just play my intro and I'll get back to you in a minute. Welcome back. So, this weekend we have a big event happening, which is fantastic. To be fair, I mean, it's not the biggest fight card or the most exciting of fight cards, but as a boxing fan, I'm always excited whenever there's something to watch, especially something that's a big, thank you, a big event. And obviously, this Canelo Alvarez Edgar Berlanga fight card is a big event. I know a lot of people are anti Canelo Alvarez and they're not really too excited about the possibility of him fighting Edgar Berlanga. But I'll show you some interesting information in my PPT, which I think is kind of funny and a little ironic. We see a lot of people who recently have been praising Tank Davis and the combined win loss record of the fighters he's been in with. So it's kind of funny to look at the guys that Canelo's been fighting and how well that measures up for him as well. Hard Recoils in the house, Drunk Irishman, welcome. So obviously, last week we ended up having a big fight card from Japan, Anui getting back in the ring. The fight card itself was pretty good, but the main event was a little disappointing. And that's obviously something we always have to deal with. You never quite know how fights are going to unfold. So, some of the things I'm going to be looking at on this fight card this weekend is what fights we think potentially could really live up to expectation or maybe even surpass, and talk about which fights potentially are 50-50 fights and not just showcase fights. So feel free to leave your input, tell me what you think, and let's get to this. So there we go, Canelo. So obviously, Canelo Alvarez, one of the most accomplished fighters in boxing today, which is one of the reasons why it kind of drives me crazy when people are so quick to be critical. Because to be fair, you know, there's lots of people you can be critical of in the boxing world, but he's probably not one of them. This is a guy who literally has done more than 99% of the other boxers out there. Sure, there are opponents we would prefer to see him in with. I mean, obviously, right now, people are super excited about the possibility of him against David Benavidez. I agree, it's a great matchup. Also, we would like to see him in that Bivol rematch. I'd like to see him in with better BF. I would even like to see him in with Bud Crawford, even though, to be fair, I understand why he and his fans are not very excited about that possibility. As far as Bud Crawford fans, for them, it's kind of that situation where Crawford might take an L, might get stopped. And for his legacy, that would be kind of like when Roy Jones got beat by Tarver and then Glenn Johnson, right? Prior to that, he was like pound for pound number one and winning a heavyweight world champion had really sort of solidified himself as probably the best fighter of that sort of generation, only to then go on and lose two knockout losses back to back and then become really, you know, old news in a sense, where a lot of people now dismiss, downplay, and kind of ignore what Roy Jones had done previously. That's one of the possibilities whenever you lose, that people may start being hypercritical and start, pointing out negatives towards you. If Crawford moved up and got beat by Canelo, for me, you're trying to do something great. By risking something, you know, anything can potentially happen. If he beat Canelo Alvarez, that would be one of those unbelievable type of victories at that point of his career. If he got beat, then it would be what you would expect. It's a big ask for a guy to go from 147 pounds all the way to 168, right? Weight classes mean something. You can't just skip past weight classes and act as if they don't mean anything. And it would be a bit of a reality check, especially for a lot of these fanboy boxing fans out there that want to see a Nui jump up to 135 and want to see all kinds of other crazy shit. Drunk Irishman says Canelo versus the winner of Undisputed at 175, a better legacy fight and a more dangerous fight. Yet people will still champion he ducking Bud and Benavidez. Oh, complain. Yeah, they will. And for me, this makes 100% sense, right? If you were to take on the winner of Better Biev and Bivol, basically what you're doing is you're putting yourself right in a line with Inouye and Bud Crawford to become a two-weight undisputed champion. And not just doing it against some, opponent or some champion, but literally doing it against an undisputed champion, right? And a guy, obviously, who would be coming off of a career victory, whether it's Bivol or Better BF. If it's Bivol, it's revenge. So that fight means twice as much. If it's Better BF, those are some big balls if Canelo actually was to step up and take on Better BF, especially if he comes through a Bivol fight, right? Stringer, what's up, my man? So, for me, I think this is fantastic. It is one of those unbelievable legacy fights for Canelo Alvarez, just like it is for Bivol and Better BF. And it's no different than Crawford going up and taking on Canelo. It's also high risk, but high reward. If you do that, if you take on that kind of risk, people need to give you the praise and, flowers that you deserve. Even in losing a fight like that, you're still doing what most people feel you wouldn't do. We know a lot of people right now will act as if he's not interested in either one of those fights. He's talking out his ass. He ain't interested. He's never going to take on that opponent. But yet, this is a guy who already fought Bivol. He's taken on those kind of opponents in the past, right? If it makes money, it makes sense. And I think for the majority of these boxers, that's really what it comes down to. Just look at this whole sort of situation going on between Boots Ennis and all the champions at 147 and even Charles Conwell at 154, right? These dudes aren't interested in fighting him unless they're getting career changing type of purses. And you can understand their point of view, but the reality is none of them are that big, right? But this is kind of the tax you get when you're seen as being fantastic and a great fighter. People expect you to pay a lot of money to get these fights. Remember back in the day when Peter Quillen's team asked for $10 million to fight Golovkin in a unification fight. 10 million, right? They were doing the same thing. They were saying there's no chance we're gonna fight you unless we get the kind of money that fucking, is career defining. Harder Carl says, but Canelo is smaller than most at 168. So to fight the best at 175 is a very risky, almost too risky situation. Well, that's why I compare it more to Bud Crawford moving up and taking on Canelo, right? Those are both big, risky moves. But win, lose, or draw, those are career defining type of fights. You might lose, but look at what you're trying to do. Look at the balls you're showing to take on that kind of opponent. It's kind of like when De La Hoya went up and fought Bernard Hopkins. That wasn't a fight he needed, right? That was more of a fight to really showcase and build up Bernard Hopkins to give him the kind of fight he'd been looking for his whole career. But for Oscar De La Hoya, he didn't need to take on that fight, but he wanted to take on a risky opponent, someone he felt he could beat, and it didn't work out that way, right? And so you got to praise a guy for taking on those kind of opponents. I do, at least. Definitely didn't want Canelo versus Berlanga, but Canelo literally has done everything in boxing and is working overtime. Well, that's true. I've been fearing for a big fight. That's why I don't think he is scared of Benavidez. He's already fought Kovalev and Bivol, more dangerous. That's what I try to explain constantly to people. I mean, Benavidez at this point is still an untested fighter who is getting a lot of attention now, primarily because of his connection to Canelo, not because of what he's done in his career. 2023, I give him full praise and full, praise for his accomplishments, taking on both Plant and then Andrade. But yet the irony is that Canelo gets very little credit for fighting Plant, an undefeated unification fight, but Benavidez gets full credit for beating a guy coming off of a knockout loss, right? That's the problem with a lot of these guys. Yo, Sean, do you watch American football at all? Not too much. It's not really shown too much in Taiwan. I kind of pay attention a little bit, but I wouldn't say that I'm really up to scratch on what's going on in the sport. But I mean, here you can see Canelo's resume, right? There's nobody in boxing today that has a resume that even comes close to that. And sure, there's a few opponents on it that are, you know, not great wins, not great opponents, not the kind of fights you would like to see him in. But let's be fair. Everybody has those opponents in the resume. So why is he held to a higher standard? People can't say because he's pound for pound number one, because nobody really has Canelo currently pound for pound number one. Some people don't even have him pound for pound top 10. Oh, sorry, top five. Hopefully everybody has him top 10. This next opponent, and I kind of think it's funny because I remember back in the day at 154 pounds when people were saying what they wanted to see Canelo do, and they say this about everyone. They want to see him in with young, hungry lions, dudes that have to prove something, guys that really, are going to step in there and do anything to get a victory, right? As opposed to name recognized fighters who are past their prime, only fighting for money, not really motivated anymore. So that's exactly what he's doing, right? In fighting Jaime Munguia and now fighting Berlanga. Sure, me, like most of you, I would have preferred to see Munguia and Berlanga fight and then the winner get Canelo Alvarez. That would have made way more sense. It would have been better marketing. It would have really pushed that fight a lot higher pay-per-view wise. And it just would have been a smarter way to go about it. But, it is what it is. You fight Munguia, now you fight Berlanga. There's now talk about potentially fighting Pacheco, and Pacheco potentially is going to be fighting Munguia, right? If he's able to beat Munguia, now that Diego Pacheco fight, as we just said, is that much more significant, right? It's a fight that makes more sense, is more marketable, and people are going to be more intrigued by it. And we all know right now, currently at 168 pounds, there's a lot of really good, young, up and coming, exciting fighters in this division. I mean, Munguia is going to be fighting Eric Bazinian, my Canadian brethren. It should be a good fight. Don't look past Bazinian. Bazinian is tall, long, good power. So, anything could happen in that fight. So I'm really excited to see how it unfolds. I do think Munguia is going to win because I felt that Munguia has been getting better and better all along. Now he's going back with Eric Morales. Um, I don't see that as a bad thing. I thought Morales was doing a very good job with him, especially refining his boxing ability and not making him such a one-dimensional fighter. But we'll see against Bazinian. Zaki says, it's not that David gets too much credit, Sean, for the plant win. It's the fact when you see guys like Ryder, Munguia, Berlanga get the Nello fight who aren't as deserving, it gets brought up. Well, it's not that they're not as deserving. Munguia is just as marketable, if not more marketable, than Benavidez. And obviously, Berlanga is not at this point, but Berlanga is marketable, right? You talk about Ryder, but Ryder was a mandatory, right? He was a guy that I thought they should have probably fought in the UK. Then it would have justified it, but they fought him in Mexico. It was a come home Mexico fight. So the numbers were fantastic because Mexico was happy to see their hometown boy come back and defend the title in Mexico. But of course, Americans that just want to hate, they look past all of this. It's like these are the same guys that want Inui to fight out of Japan, even though they know there's less interest in Inui fighting in Japan. So what would be his motivation to go to the States to fight when he's guaranteed to have bigger crowds, make more pay-per-view, and just generally get more money through endorsements and everything else by staying and fighting in Japan? Coming to America, it's nice to branch out there and say, okay, I'm going to let Americans see me firsthand. But at the same time, everybody knows that it's going to probably be a mediocre sort of turnout. It's not going to be pay-per-view. So why does he need to go? He doesn't. Breaking news, Ryan Garcia called out Bud Crawford. I made a video about that. He didn't call out anyone. He just does what he does. KMTO, these dudes are capping, man. They're not fucking interested in taking on Bud Crawford. They're only interested in fucking keeping relevant. And how do they keep relevant? Fucking chirping off through social media. The narrative pushers wouldn't give Nello much credit for DB or Bud. And that's true because this is the same sort of situation that Floyd Mayweather went through. And it's ironic, most of the guys hating on Canelo are guys that dick rode for fucking Floyd. And they would always talk about how it doesn't matter who Floyd fights, he's not going to get credit from the haters, regardless of who he fights, right? Yet, this is exactly what these guys are doing for Canelo. They're not going to give him credit for beating Bud Crawford. They're not going to give him credit for fighting David Benavidez because they don't like David Benavidez. They're just using David Benavidez. That's all. These are the same guys that didn't give Inouye credit for beating Stephen Fulton, right? They talk, but they don't mean it. They're talking out their ass, trying to act as if they're being real boxing fans by having real concerns and real topics of discussion. But once the fights go the opposite direction, we notice that they move the goalposts, and now this is no longer the same situation, right? They adjust it to continue hating. I would fight him too for that money. Well, that's everybody, right? You're going to pay me $10 million to go get beat up by Canelo Alvarez. I'm going to do it, even as a 56-year-old, fucking for sure. Inouye just said he wants Junto to beat Takumi before he fights him. Do you think Inouye versus Junto late 2025? I've been saying it all along, right? This is really how I think potentially they're going to do this. Don't be surprised if Takumi and Junto fight on that ESPN American card, with, of course, Inouye headlining it, fighting whoever, as I suggest, maybe Casemiro, because he's got a bit of a fan base. It would make sense in the States. He's a hard puncher, and people have been pushing for him for a while. And then obviously I said if he beats Takume, now in Japan, you have that whole revenge story, right? Which is just huge. You killed my brother, right? The old kung fu fucking revenge story becomes that much better. Knockout Boxing was on Fanon today debating Brian Norman Sr. It was pretty entertaining. Fuck, man. Knockout Boxing was on Fanon. It just shows you where he's really went with his channel. He sold out completely, right? Just to fucking do what all those other guys do to get paid money, right? Like, he's going to be critical of Brian Norman for not taking the Bruce Ennis fight, but then he's going to fucking man defend Errol Spence and fucking Tank Davis, who blatantly have ducked big fights for years. Blatantly. Crazy how hyped these YouTube channels get over Ryan. I don't understand it. I would love Nakatani or Bam for Inouye before he moves up to 126. Well, I definitely think that's the way it's going to go, right? Even Bob Arum is talking about that sort of being the direction that they're moving, right? He said that Junto is going to be on the undercard for Inouye's U.S. Fight. And why would you do that? To help build up the matchup between the two of them. And of course, like I said, you unify against Inouye's brother, right? And if you beat him, that should become super significant because literally now you got that whole revenge story. So now you do it in Japan. It's huge. Biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. Like, I mean, there's nothing that Inouye can do in America that's fucking even close to as significant as that. I'm just going to close the door, guys. We got like a thunderstorm outside. I don't know if you can hear it because of my iPad or earpods, but I can hear it. Okay, I'm back, sitting on the floor. So, uh, String from above, Guy Southpaw did the same thing. They talked about Jamel would stop Canelo, and come fight week, Jamel is now a cherry pick for Canelo. Well, that's consistent, right? Consistent, right? These guys do this all the fucking time. Somebody is great, then all of a sudden they're a cherry pick. This is like John when he talks about, Devin Haney beating Cambosis. And people literally just yesterday in his fucking comment section talking about why people don't praise Devin Haney for becoming undisputed, but yet they praise Inouye. I knew he's a two-weight undisputed champion. At his second weight, he fought two unified champions. Devin Haney beat George Kambosos. This is the same George Kambosos he gives zero credit for fucking Lomachenko beating. Explain that to me, right? You can't make this shit up. And how much do these guys love Fulton? Fulton's on this Canelo Alvarez card. You don't see any of the usual suspects even fucking talking about Stephen Fulton's comeback fight because they never cared. All they cared about was a Japanese fighter getting beat by a black guy so they could tell you the same old racial fucking narrative, right? That's it. Same old shit. Wow. I don't think anyone was more bothered by Inui dominating Fulton than Dante's Cheeseburger Nation. That poor fellow suffered emotional damage. Emotional damage. Norman gets 1.7 million, a main event unification fight versus Boots. If he gets beat, Boots is moving up sooner than later anyway. Seems like a good plan. Yeah, but what they want to do is they want to fucking sit back and wait until that fight marinates a little more so they can get paid more money. What was the difference? They were saying they were willing to take 2 million. So you mean over $300,000 you walked away because that $300,000 is that significant? Like how much money is he getting fighting this dude on the undercard of Keyshawn Davis? He's probably getting 300,000, right? You can't make this shit up. Lomachenko versus Kambosos was a real fight for undisputed. Well, it should have been, except Lomachenko went to war in Russia. And Devin Haney jumped at the chance to fucking pick up those titles. And he said Conor Ben's suspension could be up next month. So maybe Boots versus Ben in the UK possible. That's a great fight. And in truth, all those other dudes walking away from a big payday, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they don't have anybody at that weight class that's going to pay them $1 million, right? They're not going to make that much money fighting each other. Blair Cobb's still an option in Philly as well. Yeah, but in truth, Blair Cobb is kind of like Rolly Romero and Edgar Berlanga. The only reason people want to see those guys in a big fight is because they just want to see them get fucked up, right? That's the one thing I notice people are ignoring with the whole Edgar Berlanga Canelo thing. Berlanga is an obnoxious prick who people don't really genuinely like, kind of like Rolly Romero, kind of like Blair Cobb. People want to see those kind of guys get smashed. The problem is they also don't like Canelo. So they don't really want to see Canelo be the guy who smashes that guy. If it was somebody else, like a David Benavidez, oh my God, they would be fucking foaming at their mouth if David Benavidez was facing Edgar Berlanga. The shit would be huge. They would talk about it being fucking a million pay-per-view fight, the best fight in boxing, better than Canelo Alvarez. You know they would fucking be blowing that shit way out of proportion. Way out of proportion. So here's the card right here. Let's just check it out. Obviously, they added a few more fights to the undercard, which makes it a little more exciting. To be fair, I don't know why you keep jumping back there, but okay. Canelo Alvarez, 61 2-2. Edgar Berlanga, 22-0. So obviously, we know that Canelo is fighting. Apparently, this is for the WBC and WBO title. I wonder what that means as far as the WBA. Why the WBA title is not here. Are they trying to fuck him over with the WBA as well? We know the IBF stripped him, but I haven't heard anything with regards to the WBA. But let me know if you've heard something. Then, of course, you got Lara versus Garcia, a fight that this is typical PBC. Two old fucking guys. They're hoping have enough name recognition to make a fight that people are interested in. But this is not an intriguing fight. Danny Garcia wasn't relevant at 154. He was barely relevant at 147. And now his first fight at 160 is getting a world title fight. And ironically enough, they're not even listing the world title fight here. Then, of course, Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee. That's not a bad fight, but the problem with this fight is we know that Caleb Plant's boring as fuck. He's not an exciting fighter to watch. So it's not like this fight's going to really be a really exciting fight unless somehow McCumbee is garbage and he fucking sparks him out. Then you got Stephen Fulton coming back after how long of a layoff against Carlos Castro. Not a bad opponent, but at the same time, Fulton is not the most exciting fighter. This is his first fight at 126 pounds. So it'll be interesting to see how he carries up to that weight class. He didn't have much power at 122. So what's he going to bring up to 126? Then you have Rolly Romero versus fucking Manuel James. I don't know who that guy is. And as far as Rolly Romero, who gives a fuck about that kid? He's garbage. Roman Villa against some dude I'd never heard of. Jonathan Lopez, 16-0, versus Richard Medina, 15-2. To be fair, that fight, which is probably going to be on the pre-fight boxing stuff, is probably going to be the best fight on the card, right? You got Jonathan Lopez undefeated against Richard Medina, 15 with 2 losses. Garcia, 12 knockout wins, 21 years old, young fighter out of Florida, right? Coming off of good wins, beating Edgar Ortega, 14-2-2, and Leonardo Padilla, 23-5-1 in his last 2 fights. Now, Richard Medina, what's this? Medina, 15-2, never been stopped. Tough kid, 23 years old, not much power, 8 knockouts. Coming off of a loss to George Acosta, 8-round decision. Beat Juan Antonio Lopez, bum. Beat a guy, Steve Garzara, bum. Lost to Raymond Ford. Obviously, Raymond Ford was a world champion, so we know what level of opponent he's lost to. So that fight potentially could be the best fight on the card, the most exciting at least. Where are we? The week of the 29th was a rough week for the LDBC. The week started with Inouye battering Fulton and ended with Crawford battering Spence. Yeah, it's a day to forget for them. Tank had his date in November, but what viable opponent is out there to build a card around? Well, that's the thing, right? You're going to fight who? Raya to become a 3-weight world champion? I mean, you could do that. That in itself makes some sense, but it's typically what we would expect them to do. In-house PBC opponent, right? Nobody that anyone was asking for at a 3rd weight class, a weight where he literally ducks people because he didn't want to move up to 140, but then he moves up to 140. Shane, Caleb Plant, and Maul couldn't capitalize on that hype around the slap. Well, that's the real tragedy, right? That's really a fight. If you would have put this on the undercard, that shit probably would have got way more attention than Canelo versus Berlanga because of the slap. It would have been exciting. Obviously, the press conference would have been exciting. The back and forth between the two of them, that shit could have really sold. Berlanga is the next Caleb Plant. Who has a better undercard, AJ Dubois or Canelo Berlanga? One is only $20. Well, that's the difference right there. You're gonna fucking save $65 with the AJ fucking Daniel Dubois fight. Daniel Dubois AJ is literally a 50-50 fight. The other problem though is the undercard is mostly UK focused. So for American crowds, they're not going to really be too interested in the undercard. They might not even be interested in the main event. Some good names in the undercard, but mismatches. On the AJ fight card, you mean? We'll look at that in a minute after we get through this Canelo one. Then you have Lawrence King, 16-1 versus Vaughn Williams, 12-1. That could be a good fight. Tough Cuban fighter, Yoel Hernandez, 4-0, 4 knockouts, 27-year-old Cuban. Not bad fighter. He's facing a guy who's 21-5-1. Faced a guy 28-7. Faced a guy 23-11. After 2 first bum fights in his first fights, since then has really stepped up his competition. These Cubans, right? They're dangerous. They're not wasting time. They're jumping into big fights right off the bat. And then, of course, you have Beck Nuremberg, another tough 168-pound fighter, 11-0, facing Joshua Conley, 17-6-1. So I think the bottom half of this fight card with Lopez, King, Hernandez, and Nuremberg is probably the best aspect of the card. And you can watch that probably free on YouTube, right? That's the irony. And then you can go watch Roman Villa. I don't know how that fight's going to play out, but I don't think anyone cares. Rolly Romero, people just want to watch him get beat up. The Fulton fight and the Plant fight probably going to be boring. Lara versus fucking Garcia. I could imagine the worst for that fight. I do expect Lara to fucking beat Garcia's ass. He's taller, he's longer, he has more power at these weight classes. He's obviously a way better technically fighter, even though he's 40. So I do expect him to beat Garcia's ass and just win that fight easily. But let's see if he can stop Garcia and make a statement. And then Canelo versus Berlanga. That in itself is not a bad matchup compared to everything else we're getting on that card. Uh, it's not just the undercard; it's the whole card, including the main event. Yeah, take a look at AJ Dubois. I think that undercard is better. Canelo even more got some good names, but AJ versus Dubois is much better event, worth buying. Smith Kelly, Casse versus Warrington, Buatsi versus Hutchinson, all good competitive fights. Shiraz should be a showcase, but Denny is not a pushover. Yeah, but the problem is, like you just listed it, it's all UK based, right? So for American boxing fans, they're not going to be interested in it. Even for $20, a lot of these American boxing fans aren't going to be interested at all because they don't even know who those fucking guys are. They don't know who Smith Kelly is. They don't know Casca, who just beat obviously uh, Cordina, Warrington. They might be familiar with the name. Hutchinson and Buatsi, they're probably not that familiar with. They don't know who Shiraz is. And they barely fucking like AJ because most of them are fucking Deontay Wilder dick riders. You have to have both the Zone and ESPN Plus for Shakur Cordina and Bibble Benavides. Not anymore, I don't think. I think that whole marketing plan went down the drain because Saudi Arabia said, fuck that. That's stupid. Like, I think you could watch the fight card for $20, whether it's ESPN Plus or DAZN. So you're going to have multiple options where you could watch it. Laura can't run anymore, but you don't need to run against fucking Garcia. Give us Americans some more credit, Sean. I'm just saying as general, and you know what I'm saying is true. Generally, American fan base is not interested in UK fighters. They're just so American centric that they don't really follow boxing outside of the US. And if it's not American fighters, they're not really that fucking concerned, right? This has been an ongoing issue for years. Remember, I pointed this out before when Ness used to say that he wouldn't watch any fights unless they were shown on American TV. What? You're not going to talk about boxing in Japan, boxing in England, because it's not fucking shown in the US? What are you, a fucking idiot? Obviously, he's come around quite a bit, but this was how he was thinking. And he was a big YouTuber with a big channel that got a lot of attention, a lot of clicks. But here's some thoughts. So, is this pay per view worth paying for the Canelo Alvarez fight card? I would say, truthfully, it's not. But luckily, I don't think I have to pay $85 to watch it. So, because of that, it's probably going to be more acceptable. Are there any 50-50 fights on this card? As I said, the only fights I really think that are 50-50 are the four cards on the prelims, right? I think all four of those fights potentially could be great. But then the main events, the bigger name fighters, I don't know if there's any truly 50-50 fights out of any of them. And what's the final thing I said? Do any of these fights lead to something bigger? And that's also something we look forward to, right? You want to see that this guy beats this guy, and this guy beats this guy, then potentially this is going to lead to a matchup between the two of them, right? Which is exciting because it's great to see guys and matchups be made holistically. But on this fight card, I don't even know if you have any of that except maybe the one fight, Hernandez versus Beck Nuremberg, right? Uh, oh, okay. Hernandez is a middleweight, not a 168 pounder. I thought he was a 168 pounder. I thought, okay, okay. potentially you could have these two amateur fighters, good amateur pedigree, both fast rising pros match up, but they're both at different weight classes. So that shit ain't even gonna happen. Uh, $90 here in America, definitely not. I wonder how much business the UFC will take away from boxing this week. But the UFC is also going to be pay per view, isn't it? How much is the UFC charging for its pay per view? Because the truth is, if it's the same amount of money, then I think boxing fans are just going to stay with boxing and UFC fans are just going to stay with UFC. I don't think it's a price point where people are going to say, well, this one's cheaper or this card is so much better. If I'm going to spend this much money, I might as well watch that card. Like, who's even on this UFC card? Anyone of interest? I keep hearing Bud retiring if he doesn't get the Canelo fight. Possibly, right? I'd be disappointed because I'd love to see him do something more at 154 pounds. I think his last performance, his last two performances were very good. So it'd be a shame for him to leave at this point of his career. But he could retire undefeated like Andre Ward, and obviously not nearly as premature as Ward did. And we know, according to John Boxing, I mean, you know, that's everything. Him retiring undefeated means everything. That's why that Thai fighter should have retired at 50-0, because then he would have been up there with Floyd Mayweather for an undefeated record, right? Uh, $80 for pay per view. Yeah. So is it such a great pay per view that you would rather spend $80 for the UFC than 85 for the boxing event? I prefer boxing, so if I was going to reach that deep in my pockets, I would still pay for boxing over UFC. Uh, Yet I don't even know who's on this UFC card. Is John Jones fighting? Because if he's not fighting, I'm not even interested. I'm a very casual UFC fan. This is a statement I like because I thought it was funny when guys like JB and others were talking about the great competition that Tank Davis has been fighting based on his win-loss percentages, right? Well, here you go. Canelo's last three opponents, 100, 1, and 1. That's fucking impressive, man. I don't know if you could say any other boxer in the sport right now who, in his last three fights, has this kind of win-loss percentage. 100 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. That shit's dynamite. Dynamite. And this is what Canelo's being criticized for. He's not fighting some dudes with fucking tons of losses, some fucking bums. He's fighting undefeated fucking up-and-comers. Tank Davis got praised for all the undefeated fighters he faced. Remember, prior to the Nui fight, people were talking about, wow, Stephen Fulton has fought 8 undefeated fighters, right? It's funny that people love to move the goalposts, depending, of course, who we're talking about. Undefeated means nothing except it shows ya. Undefeated, right? A lot of it comes down to who you didn't fight, and that's why you're undefeated. The fights you didn't take, the chances you didn't take. I don't blame Bud Crawford because the PBC blatantly ducked that guy fucking for years. So a lot of fights that maybe would have tested him, maybe would have put a loss in his resume, he didn't get a chance to fight them. So, it is what it is. Andre Ward, he literally walked away from big fights. Rematch with Froch, the fight with my Canadian brethren for Undisputed, fucking a fight with my other Canadian brethren for Undisputed. Like, he literally walked away from big fights. Beat Fonduro and the winner of Zoo Backroom is the move. Bud will always be discredited for the lack of quality of opponents. 3-time Undisputed will help his cause as an ATG. Well, Zaki, the PBC are ducking him. So he's not going to get the Fonduro fight. Fonduro will definitely drop the WBO title. And as far as Zoo, Zoo, if he beats fucking Backroom and becomes a champion, he's going to fight Fonduro or Spence, whoever fights for that WBC title. He would fight them for unification, which means then Bud Crawford would be on the outside looking in, hoping maybe he could get a Virgil Ortiz opponent, because truthfully, Virgil probably is a bigger seller than any of those guys, right? So even though he's not bringing Undisputed to the table, he's bringing, marquee value. And then if you have Charlo, but who knows if Charlo's ever going to come back? And you could have the Spence rematch, but how long are we going to fucking wait around to see if Spence is actually going to come back and try to become the WBC champion or fucking what? So on the outside, there are possibilities if he stays there and fights for, the rest of 2025. But then at the same time, he could get fucking that WBO title because Fonduro ducks him. And those guys continue to try to fight each other and duck him. Virgil Ortiz shows that he doesn't want to fight him and ducks him. Boot stays at 147 and ducks him. And so then he's sitting there fucking twiddling his thumbs, not able to get any legitimate fucking opponent that actually can sell a pay-per-view. Undefeated means nothing except it shows the fighter is probably avoiding risky fights to become great. That Munguia win going to age like fine wine? It definitely could. Do you consider Canelo the best super middleweight over Ward, Calzaghe, Jones, Tony of the world? No, most accomplished. But as far as the best, I mean, he's the guy that out of all of them is least of a 168 pounder. Ward is a legitimate 168 pounder. Calzaghe, a legitimate 168 pounder. Obviously, Jones and Tony moved up from middleweight, right? But obviously still bigger than Canelo. Canelo moves up from 147 to 154. So he's 154, they're 160, right? And then we saw how big Tony went all the way to heavyweight and whatnot. So he's the guy that's really the smallest guy who's accomplished the most out of all of them in a sense of how many weight classes he's went up to do something none of them did, which was become undisputed. And Ward should have done it. And that's the criticism towards him. He is definitely the most overrated on that list, right? Definitely. Like when you think about Ward, people praise his resume, but he fought what? A bunch of fucking Euro bums, right? That's majority of who he fought. Canelo gets criticized for fighting Euro bums, but yet Andre Ward is praised for facing Euro bums. Kessler, Froch, Arthur Abraham. I mean, could Canelo Alvarez beat them? I definitely think he beat Arthur Abraham. Uh, I think he beats fucking Kessler. And I would not be surprised if he beat Froch because Froch is fucking one dimensional. Hard puncher, but slow as fuck and relies strictly on his power. The good thing Froch has is he's got a good gas tank, and that could be the difference potentially between him and Canelo. Ward beat Froch, Dawson, and Kovalev. He pulled Dawson all the way down a whole weight class and drained him. He beat Kovalev, but he lost the first fight, and everybody knows he lost the first fight. And he beat Froch, but then ducked a rematch. So I understand what you said; those are good wins. But look, there's an asterisk beside each fucking one. And it's ironic because if he wasn't black and it was a Lomachenko or a Canelo Alvarez, you'd be pointing out the asterisk. But because it's Andre Ward, somehow he gets a pass. He's not held to the same level of criticism. Golovkin gets shit on, but Errol Spence can fight guys coming up from junior lightweight or lightweight and be praised. He can fight guys coming off of knockout losses and fucking get praised, even though when Golovkin beat him, an undefeated world champion, he gets zero credit. People love to pick and choose, right? There's no consistency. What do you think about Calzaghe? I think Calzaghe is probably the best out of all of them. Prime Roy Jones, I feel, beats Calzaghe. I think Calzaghe beats Tony because Tony is lazy and Calzaghe wouldn't get in a fight with him where he'd be able to fucking fight on the inside. He just uses jab, fucking circle him, hit him with jabs, hit him with jabs, hit him with jabs, win rounds, and just force Tony to try to cut off the ring and try to get to him. But I think Tony loses that matchup. Yeah, Roy went undisputed at light heavyweight, not middleweight or super. Ward lost to Kovalev. Who was it 168 Ward didn't beat? Boutte. He could have fought Boutte for undisputed. But he ducked that fight and allowed Carl Froch to get the win. You don't get victory because Carl Froch beat a guy you didn't fight, right? And when Adonis Stevenson was calling him out at 168, he ducked Adonis Stevenson like crazy at 168. So Adonis Stevenson went to 175. And then he ducked Adonis Stevenson for undisputed at 175, where he could have fought him at that weight for undisputed. Ward lost to his biggest fight, Kovalev, and got gift decision. That's why he's overrated, just like Haney. Ducked the rematch. Yeah, ducked the rematch. He's supposed to go to the UK to rematch Carl Froch, but he refused to fucking leave his backyard to get fucking a career high payday. He also refused to go to Canada to fight Boutte to get a career high payday. He refused to fucking go to Canada to fight Adonis Stevenson. The dude fucking was protected. He was the only fighter in the Super 6 series that never had to fight on the road. The only one. Everybody else had to, and they were all world champions. He was a prospect, but he was protected. Also amazing. What's up? Ward beat him easily. No rematch needed. No rematch needed, Mike, except that fucking it would have been the biggest payday of his career. What do you mean? No rematch needed. And then you're gonna cry and whine that you fucking didn't make big money in your career, but you walked away from every big fucking opportunity you had, and then you blame your fucking promoter, the same promoter that allowed you to fucking be in the Super 6 and not have to fight on the road. You notice most of the guys in the Super 6 lost on the road. That was the whole point of bringing Ward to the UK. Calzaghe went tooth and nail with a washed Hopkins. Yeah, okay. And Andre Ward never beat anyone as good as Bernard Hopkins. So what's your fucking point? Like literally, he fucking drained Dawson all the way down to 168. He could have literally fought Dawson at a catch weight and became a two-weight world champion. But he'd rather drain Dawson all the way down to fucking 168. Sounds like you're a bit of a dick rider, Mike. I'm just saying. Ward ducked Joshua. Well, he did call out Joshua. So in that sense, he did fucking put himself in an awkward position. You call out the heavyweight, say you could beat him, and then you don't fucking fight anyone. Ward don't beat Bivol or Beterbiev. I don't think so. So Canelo overrated for ducking David. The difference there is that unlike Canelo ducking David, David hasn't done shit. He doesn't have a world championship right now. And Canelo Alvarez's resume is fucking way better than Andre Ward. And it ain't even fucking close. Ain't even fucking close. It's almost fucking blasphemy to compare Andre Ward to Canelo because he didn't do anything. He's never been undisputed. He didn't win 4 fucking weight classes. What did Andre Ward do? Oh, he won the Super 6. And I just explained that to you. But you're going to fucking ignore it. And the irony is when Josh Taylor won fucking the World Boxing Super Series, when Inouye won the World Boxing Super Series, when Usyk won the World Boxing Super Series, I bet you didn't have the same fucking energy for their fucking accomplishment, did you? No. Even Abner Mares, who also won the Bantamweight Super 6, I bet you didn't even know that. You don't even know that Ward won 168 and Abner Mares won 1 fucking 18. Because you're too busy dick riding. Calzaghe 23-0 in title fights at 168. He's still number 1 all time. Yeah. He retired undefeated and actually fought at 168 and did more than fucking Ward did. Canelo going to beat the brakes off Benavidez and fight the winner of Bivol versus Beterbiev. Froch versus Ward was in Jersey, not Oakland. Road game. Mike, stop. You're fucking full of shit, and you know it. Every other fighter had to fight on the road, literally use a passport to travel outside their country. Only Ward didn't. Oh, that's what Ward fought in Jersey. An American fighting in Jersey. He's on the road. Fuck off. You expose yourself with that stupid fucking comment. Y'all dissing my guy. I'm not going to let you diss my dude. Dissing your dude? I'm spitting facts. You're fucking talking bullshit. That's it. Ward's resume ain't even as good as Bud's. Sean, I don't think you are a big Ward guy. Do you like him as a commentator, analyst? No, not at all. He's boring as fuck. Don't get me wrong. When Andre Ward was part of the Super Six tournament, I praised his accomplishments. The problem I had is when he could have fought Boutte, he was fucking talking A-side bullshit. I fought in this tournament. I did all this. What did this guy do? What did this guy do to deserve anything? Blah, 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 blah. So you walked away from a fight where you could have become undisputed, making excuses. And then you had an opportunity to fight Froch, right? Especially Froch coming off of his great fights with what's his face for big money. Uh, Golovkin called out Froch because he knew it was a huge opportunity and was willing to go to the UK to fight Froch in Wembley. And then Ward, oh, coming out of retirement, all of a sudden wanted a Golovkin fight. Why would Golovkin fight you? He's trying to get huge fights in Wembley, 80,000 people, huge pay-per-view. Who the fuck are you? Like, you couldn't sell out fucking anything in Oakland. You're not a big draw. Your fights with Kovalev did terrible pay-per-views. Terrible. But he continues to fucking talk out his ass. And then all he does is hate on Canelo all the time. Jealousy. That's it. That's why I don't like him now. Because he's typical. He's one of these dudes that fucking talks big, but every opportunity he had, he fucking walked away from it. Ward's resume aging like milk duds. Fought 6 champions his entire career. That's it. 6. Bivol versus Better BF are 2 reasons why Ward retired at 32. That's probably completely true. We know that fucking Bivol was trying to get him. The truth isn't a diss. He said road game. I know. Road game. You ever been to Jersey? They aren't Americans. Jersey Shore people. Oh my God, come on. Sean, you just don't appreciate the sweet science, bro. But you do. But you do. There's nothing sweet science about the way Andre Ward fights. He is the epitome of a throwback fighter. A guy that will headbutt you, elbow you, hit you in the balls, hit you on the hips. He's old school as fuck. So talking about sweet science, you're fucking talking out your ass. Because this is not a guy who fought behind an educated jab, moving fucking around the ring like Sugar Ray Leonard, letting fucking combinations flow. That ain't him. That ain't him. Darrell. I like Darrell. The worst thing that happened in the Super Six is Darrell getting fouled by fucking Arthur Abraham, basically ruining his career. Because I wanted to see Darrell versus Ward, right? I would have loved to see how Ward was able to deal with Darrell. More power, faster hands, longer, better feet. Skills. Sweet science. Ward as commentator is very biased. He's just boring. I like Paulie Malignaggi as a commentator, even though he would display his hate towards boxers, but compared to others, he was okay. Well, he got personality, right? I don't mind if people are biased as commentators because people are people, but at least have personality, not be fucking sitting the fence, boring, not fucking going to say anything because you're afraid to offend somebody. Ward is a diva, a dirty fighter, and a clinch master. The sweet science, right? That's him, the sweet science. Ward's best fight was with white fighters, and Canelo can't fight white fighters. Well, that's the irony, right? Ward fighting Eurobums is great. Canelo doing it, and it's discredited. You can just see the hate in Ward's face. No poker face whatsoever. Sweet swines, same bullshit as undefeated. Andre Low Blow Ward. What's Calzaghe's best win? Prime win. Kessler, Calzaghe has a really weak resume up to the hype job Lacey. He beat fucking a legendary fucking champion. What are you talking about? Eubank, right? A legendary champion. Chris Eubank. How you praise Durrell and discredit Ward? You don't listen. That's the problem. Both of them coming into the Super Six were both highly acclaimed amateur fighters. Neither of them had done anything really as pros, but they had upside. The problem with Durrell is after he got fucking fouled and concussed by Arthur Abraham, he never went on to do anything. His career was fucked, right? But prior to that, he was fucking a way more exciting fighter than Andre Ward. Sure, Andre Ward went on to have a way better career. He also didn't get fucking hit in the back of the head and fucking concussed and have his career ruined. Like when his brother goes on to become the more accomplished fighter, right? Even though he's fucking not even close to fucking his brother, skill wise. Jeff Lacey, are you predicting a Canelo KO? What round? I don't know if I'll predict a KO because I think Berlanga is going to come in hungry. He's big. He's going to be heavy. So he should be able to take a lot of the punches. But it'd be a good knockout victory if Canelo can stop him. Ward's resume: never fought Adonis Stevenson, Bostic, Beterbiev, Bivol, Bute, Pascal, Taylor, Pavlik, Durrell. You can't blame him for not fighting Taylor because Taylor was shot when he went to Super Six. He'd been knocked out the fight prior to the Super Six, which made people like me and you think, what the fuck is this guy even in the Super Six for? And he's a middleweight, and he just came off a knockout loss. And then obviously he got knocked out in his first fight in the Super Six. 8-10, Eubank was out of his prime, not the same after he messed that one fight up for life. Who do you think Canelo fights Berlanga? Who do you think Canelo fights after Berlanga, you mean? Not sure. Canelo going for the knockout, I'm guessing. What's the second best fight on the Canelo undercard? As I was saying, I think the fights in the pre-fight card are probably the best 50-50 fights in the card, the most exciting fights. As far as the card itself, I would think the Fulton Carlos Castro fight will be good, competitive, but I think it will be boring. I think the Plant versus Macumbi fight could be good, but also stylistically boring, right? Maybe Roman Villa versus that Rodriguez guy. Maybe that could be an exciting fight. Rodriguez is 19, 2 and 2, never been knocked out, 14 KOs. He's Mexican. He's going to come trying to prove something. He's 25. Uh, you know, 2 draws in his last 4 fights. One guy was 20 and 0, the other guy was 12 and 3. Part of that, oh yeah, he fought fucking bum ass motherfuckers. So yeah, maybe he's just easy work. So maybe I'm wrong there. He looks like he's going to be easy work. Uh, Look at Mike. What's Bute's biggest win? What's Adonis's biggest win? What do you mean? Adonis knocked out fucking my man in fucking 1 round. The guy Ward dragged all the way down to 168. Fought him as a world champion. That must be significant because isn't that exactly what Errol Spence did to fucking Cal Brook? It was significant for fucking Spence. It must be significant for fucking Adonis Stevenson. I feel like better be it gonna stop Bivol. I hope so. Who you got in the Wardley versus Clark rematch? Should be another great fight. I'm leaning towards Wardley, but I always sort of favored Wardley over Clark. If is Benavidez just waiting for Bivol Benavidez winner? No, he ain't. He ain't waiting for that fight because I don't think he takes that fight. Does Benavidez fight Bivol better be a winner? Not right away, I don't think. I would be more confident of him fighting David Morrell for that WBA regular title on PBC on pay-per-view. 100%. True record. I think Canelo knocks out Ward to the body while clinching. Well, I definitely don't think Andre Ward knocks out Canelo Alvarez like he did Kovalev in the second fight. It'd be a very intriguing fight because on the inside, both of them are very, very good. The difference is Canelo, shorter arms, can get his punches off on the inside, probably more effective than Andre Ward can. But Andre Ward is a legitimate 175, 168 pound. He fought at 175 in the amateurs. Canelo is a smaller guy moving up. So Ward has size advantage, but I don't think he's got power advantage. And obviously, he doesn't have the chin advantage because he's been knocked down a shitload of times. Sean, did you watch any American football yesterday? No. I watched Katie Katie Clark, Yard versus David in the UK. I don't think there's any chance that fucking David's fighting Yard. None whatsoever. Man, the fucking Saudi's gonna have to offer him big money to take on that risky fight because he might as well just sit around and fight the winner of Bivol Better BF. At least if you lose, you're fighting for undisputed, right? And if you win, you're undisputed. Ref might not let Ward low blow as much. Well, I don't think Canelo would let him low blow so much. I think Canelo would punch him back in the balls as well. Canelo ain't fucking, he ain't drunk. He hasn't been fucking getting drunk every day fucking for 10 years, throwing away his career like fucking Kovalev did. Who wins UEFA? This year, you would think on paper, fucking Madrid, but they've been playing shit. So maybe this is the year Man City can pull it off. Or Liverpool. Ward knocked out Kovalev's balls in the second fight, clear as day. Watch the instant replay. Well, we know he did it. I just thought when Kovalev jumped on the second rope, taking the seat on it, the ref was stupid to stop the fight. What he should have done was give him an 8 count and then warn fucking Ward about hitting low. What's going on, Sean? Pound for pound king. What's up, my man? Jose, what's up? Ward can't fight if he don't have everything on his side. Never fought out of Oakland. No, he fought in Jersey. He fought in Jersey. He fought on the road. That's road game there. Liverpool. Smash the likes, people. But let's jump to screen share because we want to talk about the AJ Dubois undercard, which is also worth talking about. I think that fight should be getting fucking a lot more attention than it's getting because it's truly a fucking 50-50 fight. That fight is dangerous. AJ, the man, the myth, the legend. Y'all don't appreciate greatness. Mike, the problem is you don't appreciate greatness. You're hyping up one dude, and I'm sure you fucking refuse to give other people any praise at all. Why do you praise Ward? Because you're fucking from Oakland, right? That's why. So you're being biased just to fucking root for somebody that comes from where you come from that looks like you. We're talking boxing. None of the fighters I mentioned fucking come from where I come from. Two of them are from Canada, but both from Montreal. Neither are from Toronto. CC Rookie of the Year and MVP. She's pushing for that MVP. And now, of course, Asia's injured. So if she misses the last 4 games of the season, I don't think that's enough for Caitlin Clark to win the MVP. But she's definitely in position to get some votes for sure. She's had a historical fucking year. Ward has fans, only Mike. He was hitting him low all night, then finished him with combo to the balls, daylight robbery by American corruption. Do you remember Ward fake smile after the KO? AJ last 4 opponents haven't been much of anything, whereas Dubois fought some real comp. That's true, and I agree. That's why I think this is a really good fight. Timothy Bradley was a better resume than Andre Ward, and that's a fact. That's a fact. A fact, right? You think about Timothy Bradley's 2 biggest wins, Hall of Famers, Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez. Who did Andre Ward fight that fucking are at that level? Nobody. Let's just be honest. Frochin and Kovalev are the best names on his resume. Good, both good. But arguably, are they even fucking Hall of Famers? I don't know if they are. No one ever speaks on Sergio Mora as a commentator. The hate usually goes towards Mannix. Thoughts on Sergio Mora as a commentator. He's garbage. But yes, Mannix is straight garbage. If Ward robbed Kovalev, Bradley robbed Manny. He didn't rob Manny. That was a fucking judge's decision. Had nothing to do with Tim Bradley. Bradley won more belts, had more title defenses, beat more champions, and beat more Hall of Fame fighters. Yeah. Take a look at Billy Joe Saunders' resume. Really underrated, better than Big Charlo. Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders, good wins. He has very good wins. It's a shame he didn't end up getting that Andrade fight, right? For middleweight championship. That would have been great for Andrade, but it would have been great, obviously, for Billy Joe because it could have been another big name he put on his resume, along with Eubank and a few others. David Lemieux. Steroids? What steroids? Wasn't steroids. He was using a drug that's okay in the UK, but not okay in Jersey. That's the problem I have with sanctioning bodies and all this bullshit drug stuff. If you're going to have regulations, you make them fucking global. You don't want guys to wrap their hands like this, it's fucking global. You want guys to use certain gloves, it's global. You want guys to use this drug but not these drugs, global. Everything should be fucking global. It shouldn't be state by state, commission by commission. It just gives all these fucking dickheads more power than they deserve. I think Billy popped positive for something. Not in the UK. What he was using in the UK was A-OK. What round do you expect Berlanga to get stopped or quit? I think he's going to go the distance. Mora jealous. Who Mannix married? Me too. Is that what Mora is mad about? Mannix's wife? Dave Lemieux was a great win for Billy Joe Saunders. He was a betting underdog going into that fight. Zaki, it's not if Bradley robbed Manny. They did. He clearly lost the first fight. Clearly. His second fight performance, I think, was his best. But the first fight, he fucking was dominated. I don't know how fucking he lost that fight. People shit on Billy just because he's not black. That's true, especially because his style is kind of black. Billy Joe Saunders really stopped his momentum, popping positive, then not making the Andrade fight happen. Nah, I don't know. You don't know what? What don't you know? But my man, 28 and 3, stopped once, easily could have been twice, 25 KOs, facing Daniel Dynamite Dubois, 21 and 2, stopped 2 times, 27 years old, prime of his career, fucking 20 knockouts in 21 fights. This shit is dynamite. It's a great matchup, man. Great matchup. And let's just check out this undercard. As I said, this shit is domestic, right? Domestic UK. Liam Smith, Josh Kelly, Tyler Denny, Hamza Shabazz, Anthony Katse versus Warrington, Buatsi versus Hutchinson, Chamberlain versus Josh Paddy. I know Paddy. See, that's the problem. This card is aimed only for UK fans. And that's why when we talk about it, sure, it's only going to be $15, $20. But for Americans, they probably still pay just because of the AJ fight. But as far as the undercard, they don't care or know anybody on the undercard. They're definitely not excited about that. Billy Joe Saunders really stopped yet? Nah, I don't know. Pacquiao had a lot of controversial fights. Why Mora is mad at Mannix? Apparently his wife is hot. Billy the real slick fighter, but they are not ready for conversations. Not a fan. I just think he's underrated. Dangerous style for AJ. What is Boots to do next? Apparently, he's going to go to Germany and fight fucking his mandatory, which, you know, you might as well stay busy and fucking go beat somebody's ass. But I would definitely say, come on, Eddie. You told me to come over to Zone. It means you're gonna have to fucking win these kind of things, and you're gonna have to throw on a few $100,000 to get me fucking the fights. AJ versus Dubois. This here is Lewis versus Bruno. It is, eh? It is. That's a great comparison. Lennox Lewis versus fucking Frank Bruno. AJ versus fucking Daniel Dubois. It's a good matchup. Two big motherfuckers, hard punchers, good jabs. Obviously, AJ is technically a better fighter, has better feet, obviously can move far better. But both of them also mentally are fragile, right? Which is going to make that shit fucking 100% interesting. Nobody holding Team Norman accountable for ducking Boots. What do you mean, Mike? Nobody. Everybody is holding them accountable. Come on. There's a few people who are dick riding, but the majority of people are totally holding him accountable, saying that he blatantly ducked a fucking opportunity to get paid $1.7 million. Stanionis endorsed it. So by proxy, Stanionis also fucking blatantly ducked Boots as well, because he said 1.7 million wasn't enough for a unification fight. And then, of course, Charles Conwell just turned down the fight, saying he could make twice as much money to fight Virgil Ortiz. Yeah, okay, you could, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the fight. So, I could be a millionaire, but guess what? I'm not. Eddie is going to make Boots the next Boo Boo Andrade. Don't say that, Mike, because the reason Andrade is who he is, or Boots is who he is because of the PBC. He spent the majority of his career fighting on PBC Showtime cards and didn't get any big fights. Consistently, what people are saying is this dude needs to step up. He needs to fight better competition. PBC needs to put him in with some legitimate competition. I know he's not PBC, but he fought on PBC cards on Showtime his whole fucking career. So let's not blame Eddie because, like Andrade, no promoter fucking made Andrade big before Eddie. Just like Rigo, no promoter made Rigo big before fucking Bob Arum or after. So if Boots doesn't get big, it's not because of the promoter. It's because something's missing, right? People love to fucking act as if somebody's entitled, but nobody's entitled to shit. Yeah, H Money hates on Canelo versus Berlanga and talks smack about Canelo. But fucking H Money is fucking an idiot. So who even listens to him? Imagine DDD starting doing the HP adverbs. Better Bev is stopping Bivol, Tio, and Canelo. What about Tio and Canelo? Who wins when if Junto Naoi face off? That truly is a 50-50 fight because you could look at ways that Anui should win, more experience, faster, better footwork. But you could definitely look at reasons why Junto wins. Longer, southpaw, dynamite power. Catch him fucking coming in, it's fucking lights out, right? A little unorthodox in the punches he throws, sparring and training in the States, really fucking getting a lot of good work, and it's showing. So that shit, that shit is fucking dynamite. But to be fair, it's two guys that are pound for pound top 10. I really can't decide who to pick between Better Bev and Bivol. Do you think they will work together? I want to see Tio get trained by Eddie. Can't wait for that fight. Anui versus Nakatani is a monster of a fight in Japan. That shit's fucking huge. And I think that's great because what Japan is missing is a historical fight like that between Japanese fighters, right? This is their coming of age story, right? You know, America obviously has shitloads of fucking big giant fucking mega fights like this. England has some, but for Japan, you know, probably the biggest fight in the history prior to this was probably Ioka versus Tanaka, right? Which was a big fight. And of course, Ioka fucking knocked Tanaka the fuck out and sent him fucking packing. But this fight is huge. Tokyo Dome fight, huge fight. I just think it's great because as a boxing fan, who wouldn't love a spectacular event like that, right? I think Canelo will fight in Japan in December. I think he should, right? He could fight a mediocre opponent in Japan in the Tokyo Dome. You get paid big money, and you just wait for Bivol and Better BF to fight. See how that unfolds. See what options are available to you. Inui and Bam Bam, not Bam Bam, in 2 years in Japan. The problem is if Inui beats Junto and moves up to 126, there's probably no way that Bam and Inui are ever going to fight because Bam is going to probably fight at 115 pounds at least until summer of 225. And then maybe he'll move up to bantamweight to try to do something at 118. But if Junto already moved up, who's he going to fight? Right? I mean, if Roman Gonzalez wins the title at bantamweight, then maybe that will pull him up faster, right? Maybe by the summer of 2025, he can go up to bantamweight to take on Roman Gonzalez, a 5-weight world champion, for his first title defense at 118 pounds. Huge fight, makes sense, but you know we have to see. Sometimes it's just a matter of how things fall into position, right? Thanks for always supporting Asian fighters. You know, I support great fighters, man. You know, what's not to support? I mean, a lot of the best things that are going on in boxing right now are coming from Asia. Look at that great card that's going to be in October, November. Junto Nakatani on one day, and then Takumi Inui on the other day with that whole doubleheader card, which I think is so that they can end up matching up against one another. That shit's fucking dynamite, man. And then, of course, you know, at the end of the year in December, 30th, 31st, they're going to have a huge cards. That's why Canelo should go to Japan and fight for New Year's Eve in Japan. That would be fucking mega. The same reason we want to see Bacoli go to China to fight fucking Zhang. Huge. Great fight. Dynamite. Uh, Monster versus Robsy Ramirez 126. Well, Robsy better fucking win a title because otherwise he's irrelevant. I've been rumbling that Canelo wants the Bivol Better BF winner. I don't see him going back up to 175 at this point. Oh, Alan, for sure he will. If he can go up and face Bivol at 175 in a rematch for undisputed, he's totally going to do that. Because win, lose, or draw, it's the kind of fight that is going to fucking motivate him. Because he can do what Inui and Crawford have done, become undisputed in 2 weight divisions, right? And become, oh, with Usyk as well. Fuck, man. Imagine that, eh? Usyk, Bud, Canelo, Inui. 4 2-weight undisputed champions, all from this era, all at this time frame, and people shit on boxing consistently. Yet what we're getting is something we've never had in boxing history. It will be tough for Inui at 126. He may lose there. Yeah, you know, I don't think Inui, like some fighters, is trying to save his O. What is the percentage that Berlanga goes in and bullies Canelo on the inside? I think Canelo can get bullied by Berlanga, but not necessarily on the inside if they're throwing punches. Physically pushing, mauling him, holding him, you know, pushing his head down, pushing him backwards, leaning on the ropes, hitting him low, you know, fucking hitting him the hips, doing dirty stuff like that. But if he's going to be throwing punches on the inside, he ain't going to be bullying fucking Canelo. He's going to be getting fucking knocked out. Berlanga has no in-game skills. Exactly. He's a big boy. Big boy. That's why I think he's got to do to Canelo what Canelo didn't do to Floyd, but what Maidana did. Canelo gonna kill Berlanga. Berlanga's a big boy. He's a big boy. But the question is, can he fucking use his physicality to his advantage? Canelo's 34. He's had a long career. Mentally, how motivated is he, right? Because he's made so much money in his career. Is he still hungry like a wolf? Oh, or is he just fucking, doing what you got to do? Putting in the work, but sort of doing it fucking through muscle memory. Everything Berlanga throws is telegraphed and comes wide. Canelo will catch him between shots. Well, that's what Canelo wants to do for sure. What happens next, Sean, if Canelo, if he gets past Berlanga? As mentioned, maybe he will go to Japan and do that New Year's Eve fight card in Tokyo. I would like that. Canelo is a student of the game. Berlanga gets dropped by Lubin in sparring. Getting dropped in sparring, though, it's nothing to be critical of. People get dropped in sparring. It happens. Berlanga's IQ fade in later rounds, will get dropped a few and lose by stoppage. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, for Canelo, I think it'd be a big statement if he could get a spectacular knockout because at this point, people were kind of disappointed he didn't stop Ryder. People were kind of disappointed he didn't stop Munguia. You can fight lesser opponents, but what fans want you to do is dominate and fucking destroy them, right? Like Inui can fight the guy he fought, but what people want to see you do is fucking destroy them. Fine, you're going to fight a guy we don't think is that competitive, so fucking destroy him. And if you do that, fans are a little more easygoing towards it. They're going to be like, yeah, that was dynamite. Fucking killed that guy. That body shot, whoa, right? Lubin was roughing him up. I forgot about that. Lubin was roughing up Berlanga. Yeah, but it's a more seasoned fighter against a younger fighter, a guy that's more mobile, faster hands. Lubin wouldn't be easy sparring for a guy like Berlanga. Tank is doing that. He runs through those CB level guys. Exactly. And that's what he should do, right? If you're fighting those kind of guys, like when Golovkin was fighting less than stellar opponents, he was going in there and fucking mauling them, destroying them, right? And for me, I always said, I don't mind when guys fight lesser opponents, but I want to see them fucking put an ass whooping on guys. Show out, right? That's what you want to see. Show out, show up. Thank you very much, man. Great live as always. Cheers. Thank you very much. I appreciate your generosity. GGG was a hype job. How is GGG a hype job? Most people feel GGG beat Canelo Alvarez the first fight and deserved to draw the second fight. Canelo was pound for pound one of the top three fighters in boxing. So you beat a guy that's pound for pound top three, you get ducked by literally every single fucking champion in boxing. How are you considered a hype job? I know it's raining. We can't go out yet, right? Good girl. We'll go out soon. Don't worry. Minutes. Sparring is sparring, means nothing. Look at Zerto and Bibble in sparring compared to the pros. Exactly. The fight, look, Mayweather versus Spadafara, sparring means nothing. I like the narrative they push about Canelo that he never improved after the Floyd loss. Who says that? That's the stupidest fucking narrative I've ever heard. He fucking definitely improved a lot after Floyd Mayweather. I hear Tank is having a hard time finding an opponent for November. Of course he is. In-house fucking cherry pick. I don't care for opinion of a casual race fan. You don't appreciate guys for fighting lesser opponents, but crap on Sean the epitome of a walking contradiction. You don't appreciate guys for fighting lesser opponents. You don't appreciate, or I don't hold it against them. I think you got to think about what you're trying to say, Mike. All I'm saying is Andre Ward should have done more than he did and had opportunities and didn't do it. So when people hype him up as some fucking fighter better than Roman Gonzalez with a better career, I laugh because it's bullshit. And as far as the guy who fought lesser opponents, Andre Ward did that. He fought Smith's brother coming out of his hiatus, right? And then fought two mediocre fighters before facing Kovalev. And prior to that, he faced a lot of mediocre fighters in his career. So, let's be honest, let's be fair. Bruce Bain, also John McSmith. Canelo's career tries to get disproven off of losing to Floyd and Bivol. Makes no sense. Well, that's the stupidity that a lot of boxing fans fucking push. You're gonna lose to a fucking Hall of Famer, right? In Floyd Mayweather, and somehow that's a negative. And then you lose to Bivol, who, if he beats Better BF, solidifies himself in the Hall of Fame and potentially one of the best light heavyweights in boxing history. Potentially. So where's the need to be critical and hate on them? Ward displayed greatness every fight. That's definitely not true. Average height of Taiwanese man is 5'6", 5'7", Taiwanese. So you must walk around feeling like Godzilla. Well, all the young kids, man, they're much bigger now than when I first moved to Taiwan. So I think a lot of these 5'6", 5'7" is based on the older generation. The newer generation, kids I taught, they're all growing taller than I am at 5'10". Even though I am shrinking a little bit in my old age, Ward started the European bum bashing tour. He did. Ward really looked great against chins by a journeyman in Darnell Boone. I don't really know, to be fair, not to be a hater. I don't really know any fight that I ever saw Andre Ward in where I could say that he displayed greatness. Even in wins that were obviously very good wins, significant, he never fucking impressed me as a fighter. He wasn't the kind of fighter I liked. He wasn't exciting. He didn't put his punches together. He didn't have one punch power, right? Like, what was his best win against Dawson as far as like one to watch? Kovalev 2. Kovalev 2, come on, get real. Dawson. Dawson, who he drained all the way to 168. Froch wasn't a fun fight to watch. It was an ugly fucking fight. Not entertaining at all. Like, you did not show your greatness because up at that point, who the fuck was Carl Froch? He hadn't even done anything. He was a guy Americans hated on, just like they did fucking Matthew Hatton. Or no, not Matthew Hatton. Who? Ricky Hatton, right? Ricky Hatton and Froch and Calzaghe. These three guys from American boxing fans were ridiculed and rinsed repeatedly. But now that Ward beat Froch, woo! Now, whoa. That shit's significant now. Froch is legit. Just like Floyd beating fucking Hatton, right? Then Hatton was great. Prior to that, he was a fucking mediocre domestic UK fighter, a Euro bum who hadn't fucking beaten any legitimate opponents. It's great to see how people spin the narrative, right? When a fighter they like beat somebody, Alan Green, fuck off. Now you're fucking talking out your ass. Alan Green was never great on any fucking level and was a fill-in opponent at the Super Six. Ward never fought a legend. Kovalev could have been. Ward was one of the dirtiest fighters. Great fighters don't need to resort to those tactics. You are only 5'10". Dang, you look taller on cam. You're a little guy. Little. Taller than the average. Isn't the average American 5'9"? I know. My dad, my uncle, both 6'1" and 6'2". That's why I played basketball growing up and volleyball, thinking I'm going to be at least 6'2", maybe 6'4". And then I never got past fucking 5'10". Imagine the shock fucking I felt. It did not help my chances of getting a fucking scholarship to play basketball in the States, that's for sure. And it's ironic because my cousin, she's taller than me. She's like fucking 5'11", almost 6 foot tall. Her brother's like 6'3". But meanwhile, me and my sister from my dad's side are both short asses. And her son is 6'7" right now, playing fucking volleyball for the same school I played volleyball. Why did he get all the height? Waste of time. Uh, Ward also wanted no part of Fraud's rematch. That's true. Ward can't get a break on this channel. It's because you keep dick riding him. I don't know why you keep bringing him up. He's not even relevant to our conversation right now. Between Ward and Hopkins, come on, Hopkins, man. Ward only can beat who was available. That could be said about everybody. Both are saying needed to use it in every fight, no matter if they're fighting a skilled opponent or C-level opponent, they still do it. You could have been a great horse jockey. No, I couldn't have. You crazy. You don't know fucking how big jockeys are, man. I do. They're much fucking smaller than me. And not as fucking dense either. You gotta be small, right? You're fucking carrying all your weight fucking in the saddles. I love fucking going to the races. I went to the races in India. I see you're a jockey riding Ward for something he's not. Yeah, you know. No hate on Ward. Ward is a great fighter during his period of time. The problem is he was probably the worst thing for his career, right? Taiwanese food is mediocre. There's a few good dishes, but overall it's too oily and doesn't have enough flavor compared to some areas in China. You know, China's so big, right? So each area there's very distinct food. Sichuan province, great food, spicy, very good. Hong Kong, mostly steamed food, so healthy, steamed. Uh, different regions, different food. Taiwan, very oily. Philippines, food, garbage. Vietnam, fucking great. Great. Japanese, great. Korean, fucking great. Meat and beer, it's almost an American diet. Any fried chicken, oh fuck. Asian people love fried chicken. Asian people love fried chicken. Fried chicken's everywhere. Uh, my ex coworker, his brother-in-law started a place called Fucked Up Chicken. That chicken is pretty good. Fucked up chicken. When I heard about what went down between Ward and Dan Gruson, I said, this is not a good guy. Of course, he likes to play that off as if he was the victim. But yet, this went to court multiple times. He lost every single time. The only reason he got out of his contract is because fucking Gruson died, and his brother was like, fuck you. Any mac and cheese? Well, there's a few places with mac and cheese, but I think you'd be disappointed because obviously it ain't American. Is Taiwan your home for good or retire somewhere else? I may need to retire somewhere else. Taiwan is becoming more expensive all the time. And buying land, it's super expensive. More expensive than the fucking States, almost as expensive as Canada, maybe more, depending on what city you're from. My friend just bought a house outside of the city in the boonies. It's basically still the city, but suburbs. And he spent 15 million NT. 15 million NT is almost 500,000 US, 500,000 Canadian, right? And if you saw the house, you'd be like, man, that shit ain't fucking worth $500,000 Canadian. And what he could have got in the UK, where he's from, especially where his parents live and stuff, it also fucking, would have been way bigger fucking property, big lots, right? You could have got far more for about the same price. But Taiwan is small, so land's super expensive. Uh, that's cheap for Cali. Well, depends on what area, right? Depends on what area. Like 500,000, yeah, you wouldn't get much in fucking Vancouver or Toronto. You could get a house, you could get a condo, right? But if you want a house, I don't know, you'd be getting. Does Canadian currency have the same value as American currency? No, American currency is higher. Canadian is similar to Australia, New Zealand. So, probably, I think American is 34 on the Taiwan dollar. Canadian drops to 28, 29, 30. But, thanks everyone for jumping in. As you can tell, Lily's getting restless, so I'm going to have to try to find a way to take her for a walk. So I will see you guys next time. Obviously, big fight card coming up. If it's possible, I'll go live for that. So stay tuned and we will chop it up live. So thanks very much, everyone. I will see you next time. Enjoy your week. I'm having a busy one.